Okay, it's 5:30. I'm going to start the script for one of our last, hopefully our last, fully remote meetings. We're using Zoom webinar for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. Let's see, let's go down and confirm member access. Let me confirm all members. Please let me know if you can hear me. States, let's see, call your name, please respond in the affirmative. We'll start with select board first. Melissa Murphy.
Present.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
And I don't think I see Dawn yet. Do I? Nope. I have a smaller screen today, Erica, so it's harder to find. Okay, staff. Erica Mooney.
Present.
David Gray.
Good evening here.
David. Roberto Santamaria.
Here.
Libby Gibson.
Here.
Mr. Brian Turbot.
In attendance.
Tom Rafter.
Here.
And I think that's it for Bob Petroff, our Island Home.
Yep.
Hi there.
Hello.
And then some anticipated speakers. We have Ziad Kari.
I'm here.
Ziad. Peter Brace.
Here.
Hi, Peter. And I think
Did you
that's
say Tom Rafter?
What's that?
Did you say Tom Rafter?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he's here. That's everybody that I see right now. A couple other little things. This meeting is being recorded. These where the other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share all the supporting materials that have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along the posted agenda. Let's see. I will sometimes I don't need to introduce each speaker. We've already kind of went through that. Let's see. Please remember some housekeeping. Please remember to mute your phones and mute and turn your video off if it's not your agenda item. It makes it easier for us to see hands going up and everything. And if you're an attendee, please raise your digital hand to be able to speak. Okay, and finally, each vote taken tonight will be conducted by roll call vote. Let me switch my screens here.
Just so you know, Dawn just joined.
Okay, Dawn, can you hear us for the roll call?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm done. Okay, we'll call to order the, that's the wrong one. Got next week's in March 9th, select board meeting to order. There's no changes to the agenda. We'll go over to announcements.
Okay, announcements. This meeting is being video and audio recorded, as we know. We, in accordance with the Select Board Committee appointment policy, we are reading the names of applicants for committee vacancies. We have an alternate seat currently available on the planning board. And as of today, we have 4 applications: Jennifer L. Porter, F. Scott Wilson, Carl K. Borchert, and Colin Wyatt Letty. We have an announcement to make about this, some sewer and water projects occurring on South Shore Road. They've already started. And I would go to the sewer director, David Gray, to just, David, give a quick overview of the project, the schedule. And is this where you wanted to mention the temporary access to the treatment plant?
Yes, I did, Libby. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The sewer force main project, the South Shore Road gravity sewer project, and the water project were all awarded to RBO company. Today, they started to mobilize all the manholes and everything along South Shore Road. Over the last few days, we created the base for this temporary access, as you can see on the attached, because a lot of the work's going to take place right at the gate entrance, and manholes and being installed. This is the safest way that we can continue to allow access into the site with septic haulers and all of our permit applications and everybody. So it's going to be clearly marked. We're going to have some signs out there starting in the morning. I'm going to be working with a land bank. I'm going to have to call them tomorrow to try to control access on the small path that's just before the admin building. It's a walking path that we don't see as much activity this time of year, but I want to make sure I we clearly mark it and make it as safe as we possibly can. So that was and I'll be updating. I don't know if it'll be a weekly thing or whatever, and I'll try to do some updates from the field. But this is one of the most important things now is our new access we just built. So I think that's it, Libby.
Thanks, David. We do love your field reports. Does anybody have any questions about that? We have the third sewer force main project issue to go over a little bit later in the agenda, so we can do that then. But with regard to this project, any questions? No. Okay. David will be, like you said, we'll probably do updates every other week, once a month, whatever we think might be when stuff is happening. Starting next week, as the chair mentioned, select board meetings will be held in person at the usual place, the community room at the public safety facility. They will also be on Zoom webinar. There'll be hybrid meetings. So if people wish to tune in or become on as attendees, they can still do that remotely. And that is it.
Okay, any select board announcements or comments before we get started? Melissa.
Thanks, Jason. I was curious if you are planning to have the steamship authority legislation come on as an agenda item for us to talk about in public session.
We could do that. We had Dylan Fernandez on recently to ask him some questions.
Yep.
We could bring it back.
I saw that and I found that, that I believe, and I don't know if the rest of the board does, that this is worthy of a bigger conversation.
Sure.
And I think, I've got some concerns I won't go into tonight about it, but I would love to see it on an agenda item.
Okay, great.
I don't know if everybody else agrees about that.
Libby, do you want to say something?
I saw that Dawn had her hand up. So
Okay.
Oh, but it wasn't about that. I was going to make.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I was just going to mention that I think, as you all know, there was a hearing today about the legislation. I did attend remotely, and they did indicate that they will remain open for written comment. So maybe if you want to put this on the agenda next week, because I don't think we want to wait too long if we're going to make.
Yeah, that would be great, Libby. I saw that follow up too, and I agree. I think it's important for us, if we are going to say something, to have a conversation about it and get that comment submitted.
Okay, so I'll talk to Libby and then Dawn on timing. Next week we do have a fairly large agenda, but maybe we just, some meetings just have to be long. So if there's a timing issue, we'll get it on the 16th.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. Dawn?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that there was a design thinking workshop the past 2 days that Christy and Matt, I was able to attend part of it, and Libby, and it was for coastal resiliency, and I just thought it was really valuable and really interesting.
Anybody else have any comments, or you could comment on the end too if you're not ready? Christy?
I'm happy to comment now. I just agree with Dawn. I found it to be really helpful to really kind of like hunker down and talk about one subject and problem and spend the full 2 days talking with town staff and other boards and commissions and really trying to brainstorm ways to solve this critical issue. Whereas some of our other workshops were focusing kind of on big picture strategic planning, and it's usually just the 5 of us talking. I found this one to be really helpful, and I hope we do it in other areas in the future.
Thank you, Christy. Matt, anything?
No, they've covered it. That's okay.
Yeah. Matt was there, I believe, the whole time, both days, and Libby. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt and I attended a sort of a finale this morning with a smaller group. So maybe we can report out on that at the end.
Sure. And I was just going to say, for next week, we're going back in person, but it's also will be hybrid. So those who are not able to attend will still be able to virtually attend and raise their hand as normal. And I'll probably say this at the beginning of the meeting next week. Be patient, as sometimes there could be some bugs to work out, but we are happy to do the hybrid event. It's more inclusive, more people have access.
Oh, we have a.
Okay, Matt, you're not muted. All right, follow-up comments from prior select board meetings. This is on the the public school campus-wide plan. Libby, did you want to, I was going to say that Megan Perry asked a lot of questions last week. She put them in writing, and then Libby answered all those, but she was going to cover some of it, I believe.
I was just going to mention that upon second reflection about this, it is in the packet. I don't know if it's necessary to read the answers to all of the questions, but I think we did respond to them. And of note is the fact that the project in question is not under the jurisdiction of the select board or town administration. It is under the jurisdiction of the school committee by charter and by state law. We don't have control over the school committee. They certainly have talked to us about the project. And I think at this point, the current recommendation is that the artificial turf field project be removed at this point from the campus-wide master plan funding request for the 2022 annual town meeting. So FinCom took that up yesterday and basically adopted a motion that excludes that project for now.
Okay, thank you, Libby. Matt?
And I think it is true. The project is theirs, but once the Board of Health, once we get the health department and the water company, other people to comment, and we learn a little bit more, there's a position for us island-wide on that topic that I think, a leadership position that I think the select board and the staff should take, depending what the results of this are. So, we are responsible to look at the big picture and look at the, health and safety of the entire island. So when that information comes in, I think we should potentially comment. So I think it's, it's not necessary right now, but as we move forward, we should be thinking about it.
Sorry, I accidentally muted. Thank you, Matt. Is there any public comment tonight that is for items not on the agenda? You can raise your Zoom hand. Okay, I don't see any there. So we can move on to a COVID-19 update. Roberto, are you taking that tonight?
Good evening. It's been a while. So it's all been good news. It's been doing very well. One of the things that we wanted to connect without is the sewer report came back today, still showing only between 1 and 5 cases a day. So it's doing very well. We are still monitoring for another week at least to see if there's going to be an outbreak based on the school vacation. But then I think, to quote Rochelle Walensky from CDC, we're at a point of this being endemic. It's starting to, we're going to see spikes, we're going to see ebbs and flows, but we know the vaccines work. We know this is moving forward, and we know now the seasonality of it. So I think, though we'll still be monitoring it over the next few years, I think we're going to be seeing it more like the flu. With that, there's a few updates that I do want to give out. I have them written down here so I don't miss them. The Nantucket Cottage Hospital is no longer doing boosters. The only 2 booster clinics now are Moderna at Dan's Pharmacy and town and state clinics. We will continue doing in-person signups for this month on today, March 16th and March 23rd. We will be doing the one at the trailer tomorrow, but starting this Saturday, we're going to be using the state to be running those clinics. So you can sign up for the state clinic as well on the town's website. Just click on COVID-19 on the top right and go to click on the COVID vaccine section, and it will get you to the sign up sheets. And then that is everyone eligible, ages 5 to 155. So it'll cover the whole gamut. So it also does youth. If you want to sign, it also does boosters. It's any of the doses. So that's actually been really good. And you can sign up for that online, or you can do the in-person signups on Wednesdays from 4 to 5 at the trailer at 131 Pleasant Street. And with that, I think we'll call it an update. Nice and easy.
Thanks, Roberto. Go ahead, Melissa.
Just a quick question, and I guess this is not necessarily for Roberto, but will we be asked and will the public be asked to wear masks at our meeting next week, or is that an option?
It's all optional now.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was assuming it was optional as well.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions for Roberto? All right, thank you.
Sorry, Jason, I do have one more.
Oh, sorry.
And this may be something that we could talk about at the Board of Health, Roberto, and I know we had talked about this at one point when we thought the pandemic was somewhat plateauing earlier. Is there any discussion, maybe even at the cabinet level or within your office, about what have we learned? What does Nantucket need to do differently for the next healthcare crisis that comes down the pike? Any policy reform, any actions that we could pass on to next people for best practices? Thank you.
Absolutely. We are talking about that here in the office. We are just now slowing down, but there will be an after action report that we write up. I'm going to try to do it just like the reports that I had submitted before. That written report that I had before, I'll build off on that. From there, I'm actually working on one right now, a very different style that's going to be a little bit more quantitative. So we should, if things go well and once it gets approved by the IRBs, we should be able to get that survey out to people within the next few months. Just to see, it's a retrospective view of our responses and getting information on what worked, best practices, and I will be giving an update to the Select Board and the Board of Health as soon as I get that completed and published. That will
Fabulous.
take,
Thank you.
that should take the greater part of the year, but we will have an after action report done, and like an autopsy, more like it.
Yeah. What do we call them in the event world? We used to call them postmortems, which had sort of an awful ring to it, but I think it's really important. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Erica, can we go to Bert Balkine as a hand up?
Thank you, Chairman. Bridges, there's an echo. I just want to say there's an echo or something in the background. I don't know if you guys are all hearing it, but it was kind of hard to follow the last conversation. I don't know if someone's computer's not muted. Thank you very much.
No, it's my mic. My mic's terrible.
I don't hear anything. It sounds fine to me. Anybody else?
No, I've heard other people complain about my microphone catching an echo.
All right, we got to get you a new microphone, Roberto.
The professional one.
Okay, thank you for that, Spruce. Anything else, Roberto?
No, that's really it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, we'll take pending contracts separate. So is there a motion to approve the minutes, payroll warrants, and treasury warrants?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
and Jason I. It passes 5-0. Pending contracts. Is there any questions or anything that you wanted to review, Libby? There's a lot of them on there today.
There are a lot of them. There are some grants. There are some professional services items. Karen McCumber is on as a panelist, just in case there were questions about. There's one of the last items is a grant agreement from the town to the chamber for $25,000. This is a supplemental grant for the Rock Solid Fund for business recovery from COVID. And if you recall, we have already given some dollars to that. Karen, I can't even remember the amount. It's 50 or 100 total maybe. But she's done a really good job administering this grant. And I think maybe it's helped. I don't know if you might want to hear from her about some plans for it. Karen, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that'd be great to hear from Karen if she's ready.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Libby. Yeah, the money that the town has provided has made a real difference. You've provided almost $200,000 to date, and we've helped over 35 companies through COVID and they're beyond. This next round, we're hoping can be a little less COVID recovery focused and a little more getting ready for the future. So implementing new technologies and equipment so that our businesses can prosper and grow.
Thank you. Any questions for Karen? Thank you, Karen. This is a great program. Thanks for all your work and innovation and partnerships that you're creating to help all these small businesses.
Thank you.
Thank
Anything
you very
else?
much, Karen. I didn't really have anything else.
Okay. Anything from board members? Comments or questions? Okay, so
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That pending contracts pass 5-0. Gift acceptance. We have a gift of $50 from David Eastman for the USS Nantucket commissioning, and we will, I believe, Libby, pass that on to the commissioning committee.
Yes, Mr. Eastman got in contact with me a couple of months ago, right? Maybe it was around Christmas time. And he was very, very interested in the USS Nantucket. What's that thing we went to? The launch. There's a name, it's escaping me.
Christening?
Thank you. The christening, of course. It was one of the most important things I ever did. In any event, he contacted me after he's retired military and lives on the Cape, was very, very interested and wanted to give a donation to the commissioning. And I did explain that the town isn't handling the commissioning. That is handled typically by a nonprofit group. So we will send that money to that group, and they have already been in contact with him.
Great. Thank you. Any motions there?
Motion to accept and send a letter of thanks.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Christy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason, aye. Thank you for that gift, Mr. Eastman. On to Citizen Department Committee requests. Sewer Department is requesting C Street third sewer force main project for spring work. And I think David is going to take us through this, and or Erica.
Yeah, both Erica and I are here, so it's either
I
one.
was going to defer to Ziad.
Oh, Ziad, okay, sure.
We've got a small PowerPoint that he's going to share.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
I am. How's this? Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Erica, just to let everyone know that Frank can't make it right now. He's currently on the highway driving in snow. So if anything was requested, he asked me to fill in for him.
David, are you doing anything, or want me to get going on this?
You can go ahead and get started on this. I just want to let everyone know that Frank was just unable to attend by phone. So.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We thought this is a good opportunity to kind of give you an update on the status of the fourth main and perhaps request a couple minor changes and from the contract. So the fourth main was slightly delayed. We ended up bidding the project back in October 2021, October 6th. And the contract date is dated November 10th. Because of supply chain issues and pipe delays, the contractor just mobilizing today. This, as you heard David say this week, the contract duration is 195 days, calendar days, from the notice to proceed. And in the contract, we have a summer shutdown between June 1 and September 30th. The working hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Pleasant and Surfside, actually, I'm sorry, this is a mistake here. This is between 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. So recently we met on site with Robert B. Hours, the contractor, Currently, there are 3 contracts ongoing on South Shore Road. One of them is the gravity sewer, and the design engineer is Weston Sampson. The force main project is also happening with a start location at the plant, and it will be ongoing on South Shore Road. We are the design engineer, and Hazen and Sawyer is the OPM. There is also a water main that would be happening at the same time, and the contractor for the 3 projects is Robert D. Hour. So as we mentioned, they mobilized this week. The thought process is they want to get going on the gravity sewer. And within a month, the first crew will be working on the gravity sewer from the plant out on South Shore Road. And once that crew has enough ahead of them, the second crew will join in to start working with the force main. And somehow a third crew along the way will join, and they'll be doing the services. So one will be dedicated to the main line on the gravity sewer. Another crew will be doing a force main, and the third crew will be doing services. So in the contract, as far as the force main is concerned, we talked about shutting down for the summer by June 1 or the end of May. And the request that we're making here today is to allow the contractor to work on South Shore Road through the end of June. And this way, if they're able to catch up with the work utilizing 3 crews, there's a chance that we could finalize all the work on South Shore before the June 30th, and they may be able to pave the road for the summer. So for whatever reason they don't finish, they will pave by June, and they'll take the break for the summertime, and they'll come back in September to complete the work on South Shore Road. So as far as the force main project is concerned, the fall work from Fee Street all the way up to Silver, and that goes for Step Lane, Center Street, a little bit on Center. There's Lily, Liberty Street, Winter Street, the Main Street crossing, and then Pine Street and Silver. The actual work consists of full replacement of gravity sewer, upgrade the water main, put the force main in, and then do full depth reclamation. Some sidewalk work would be involved, restoration will be involved there. Again, the working hours within those limits are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So part of the reason that route was chosen when we presented this to you back in 2020 or 2021, the idea was to take advantage of existing utilities and just to upgrade the utilities along the way. So basically you dig once and you replace the utilities. For the Pleasant Street and Atlantic Ave, we have installation of just the sewer force main, and there's restoration, there's some paving involved, of course, and then the work hours are between 7 and 5 p.m. Surfside, as you probably noticed when Robert B. Howard completed the Surfside gravity sewer project, they were working between 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. Now, what we have on our contract, part of the force main will be actually happening in the bike path from Maya Comet up to South Shore Road. That would be taking place in the bike path, in the bike path. So there's a chance that some of this work could be done during the day, but we'll have to kind of wait and see how the project progresses. So overall schedule, again, it's 1,095 days. It's spread out over 3 seasons. There's no summer work. Mobilization for the force main, actually, even though Robert B. Hour mobilized this week, but the actual work associated with the force main doesn't start till April, the first week of April. And we are requesting on South Shore Road that the work be extended through June 30th for this year. And in September, the contract actually calls for a start date of October 1. We're requesting that this could be allow the contractor to work starting after Labor Day, so sometimes after September 12th. And in the fall of 2023 through the winter of 2024, the remaining work would be all the downtown piece from C Street all the way up to Silver Street. And then restoration will be happening in the fall of 2024, and the contract will be closed out by December of 2024. So again, the two changes that we're requesting, so allow for the spring work on South Shore Road to extend through June 30th, 2022. And this will provide them the opportunity to hopefully complete the work and then pave the road and call it, just keep it in binder. And when this entire project is complete, they'll come back and they'll finish paving on South Shore from curb to curb. The reason for the downtown work to start in September versus October 1, because the water main work requires bypass. And just to beat the weather a little bit and have an opportunity to implement the bypass, do the services, and not risk for the water main to freeze, that's what we ask, the contract is asking if we could allow them to start on this September 12th versus the October 1. Those are really the two requests that they're looking for, and I would be more than happy to entertain any questions they may have.
Any questions from the board or anyone else?
Yeah, Jason, it's Matt.
Yep.
Now, I have a quick question. I'm not so concerned about extending it in June, but I am worried a little bit about where will you be on C Street? What direction is it going? Who will you be impacting? Because there's two or three really busy weekends still in that window. If it's a contained situation and it's not too impactful, that's probably okay. So where are you? Where will you be? September 12th to October 1st.
So September 12th, the starting point at the C Street pump station. So the work would actually start right there and move up the road on C Street, step lane. It's just in that order. But because it's a force main, we discussed it at the job, was a couple of weeks ago, we met on site. There is an opportunity to skip that first piece just because of the reasons that you mentioned. And we could potentially start on Lily or Liberty just because it's a force main. It is possible that we could do that.
Erica?
I just want to note though that there are going to be issues with abutters and neighbors, no matter when we start this project. To be able to alleviate some of that is going to be great, but I think no matter what time it is, it's going to be tough. But it's so important to take advantage of those good weather weeks, because once we get into winter season, that's when we start losing days. And we want to try to get in and out of there just as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Erica. Christy? Then Matt?
Thank you. And I agree with Erica. I think it's really important to get in there when we can. And I also see Matt's point about being careful around the hotels. And so if there is an option to start on Lily Street or another street, I would be more in favor of kind of hitting C Street a little bit later in September, closer to when the work would have started, just to not disrupt those hotels on those last busy few weekends.
Right. And Christy just made the point. If we've talked to those impacted businesses and they are not, and they've agreed and are not taking, haven't taken reservations, that's great. But I think if they're taking reservations, we're opening ourselves up to, I agree we're opening ourselves up to more complaints. And so, so I just think if they were counting on it being October 1st and we can start elsewhere and then come back October 1st, they've had a warning for that, but I don't want to surprise. It's wedding season. A lot of them do a lot of their business that period. So if there's a way to go down another street, and spend those 2 weeks on a couple other streets that are not as crucial, that's, I think the September, who knows, the Nantucket project might be back. There's a lot that goes on those 2 or 3 weeks. And then it really drops off 3rd, 4th week of September. It's a big difference. So.
Erica?
Thanks. Then we contend with Columbus Day weekend. I think, again, we're going to be hitting holidays and other things. And, David and I were talking about it. We counted, I think, 4 or 5 guest houses alone from C Street to Lily Street. So, we are going to definitely be reaching out to those businesses sooner rather than later to talk about scheduling, but I mean, I know a couple of them that go well into December. And I mean, and there's going to be impacts, and all we can do is the best we can do. But I'm definitely in agreement about, maybe starting on Lily Street instead of right on C Street, right from the beginning. So.
And I have to say, I agree too, Matt. I have spoken with the owner of Cook's. He called me the other day and we spoke, and they're all stressing that concern. So we definitely will do our best to try to alleviate any of the issues and move along as quickly as we can, or start in other places. But some of the roads are going to be tough.
Yeah. And I mean, what people need to understand too is this is a critical infrastructure need. It has to be done. So there's going to be inconveniences. And I don't really know how to alleviate some of them.
I think it sounds like you guys are in communication and trying to minimize as much as possible. I kind of agree with Eric a little bit. Like, you're going to hit one holiday and some big weekend, regardless of where it goes. So I think the communication is the most important part. And we learned from Essex Road and those type of things of communicating to abutters and sending people another way and just kind of thinking through all that. So to me, that's the most important part, is communicating.
I don't know if people remember, but it's going to be almost like phase 2B sewer when we did that about 7 years ago. And it was down India Street and down Broad Street and Center Street, and the whole downtown was taken up, and it wasn't fun, but we made do.
Any other questions or comments? We need a motion to approve this. Yes. Okay. Your motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Christy?
I just have a clarifying question. Is this to approve it with starting not on C Street?
It would be the dates, and I think we're in agreement that we would move our start location a little bit further out of the main downtown if we can, over to Lily Street. But what we're asking for is the date specifically.
Okay, then aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes.
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Erica. Okay. Next up is Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board recommendation regarding private shellfish aquaculture licensing held by Ted Lambrick. This is maybe the third or fourth time we've brought this. I'm not going to give a lot of time for this, so I'd like to be very succinct. And I'm serious when I'm not going to give this a lot of time. So I'd like to get, is Peter Brace here to walk us through the recommendation?
Yes, here. Okay, so as I guess we took all the time, so you guys don't have to. So basically, it seemed that Mr. Lambrecht, who I believe is present, was amenable to a transfer of the lease, which is a much shorter process, or it's a much easier process than revocation. I don't know all the particulars. Jeff Carlson is here to do all the background, but essentially our board recommended to you guys, to the select board, that Mr. Lambrecht be able to transfer his lease. Maybe he recoups some of his financial investments. He'd be given 90 days to do that. And that 90 days begins when you guys say so. So if you vote on it tonight and say, yes, this is going to happen, the clock starts. And then he has that amount of time to work with Jeff and to work with the person he's going to transfer it to. If he does not, if it doesn't get done by the 90 days, then the license gets revoked and an opening appears for somebody on the list.
Thank you, Peter. Jeff, is there anything you'd like to, any background you want to give us? Yeah, I think you're muted, Jeff. Or I can't hear you. Yeah, still muted. You don't have the little mute icon there, but I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear him? Is it just me? Okay.
No, can't hear him.
Okay. I think the letter in the packet summarized it pretty well, and so did Mr. Brace.
If I could just continue a little bit. Well, so there are particulars to be worked out as to what happens to Mr. Lambrecht's gear, the oysters that are in the gear, when that all comes out. And that's something that'll be worked out, I guess, between Mr. Lambrecht and Mr. Carlson. That isn't really for us to do. We were just in play to work on a resolution of the sort of the bigger picture.
Thank you. Jeff, are you with us now? No. Can you log out, log back in maybe? Maybe that'll fix it. Melissa? And then
Just
Christy.
a quick question, Jason, maybe to think about while we wait for Jeff to come back. If there is a motion to support the recommendations made by the SHAB, then how would we need that to read? And what in particular does it need to say? I just want to make sure we have the right motion prepared.
Okay. Peter, Jeff, can we hear you now?
So we're not making a motion. We're recommending that this happen, and then you guys decide. One of the select board members is going to have to make the motion, yes. Correct?
No, I agree, Peter. Thank you. I was just
Okay.
asking Jason if we wanted to have a motion in support of the recommendations you all made. How would that need to read? So thank you.
Okay.
Christy, do you have your hand up? And then Matt.
Yes, I was just wondering, is 90 day an appropriate amount of time, or could this be 60 or 30 days, or kind of what was the thinking behind SHAB?
We worked it out on how long it's going to take, and at the bare minimum it was 60 days, and we figured 90 days would allow for everything to happen without putting too much pressure on everybody.
Thank you.
Matt?
And Jeff can explain that better.
Yeah, and my question, Peter, was, so this is, and Ted can answer this too. Was this agreeable with Ted? This was his, he's agreeing with this course of action. Because if someone said to me, you've got 90 days to wrap up your business, and there were sharks circling my business, the price would drop. They would be saying, okay, well, we'll just wait 90 days and we'll get it, we'll get it for free. Is this all agreeable? Has he found, I guess it's a Ted question or a Peter question. Was that discussion at your board level?
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Sid no longer wanted to do Henry's Jr., but the whole family and the whole island wanted Henry's Jr. to stay Henry's Jr. It would be just behind the scenes transferring the business like that, So I didn't get from Ted, but maybe I wasn't paying attention, that it was a lot of work to transfer. I mean, he's just going to be selling, I guess, the business to this other person. So we didn't get that it was going to need more than 90 days, but maybe you guys and Jeff will think so. And I can't speak for Ted. He's sitting right there.
Yeah.
Let's have.
Matt was there for Ted. Oh, Jeff, we got you now?
Yeah, I used the call-in, so hopefully my thing is working. I had to go to the backup. My microphone's apparently worse than Roberto's, so we'll see what we can do. But to answer the questions from earlier, I think 90 days is enough time. We've already been in contact with the individual involved with Mr. Lambrecht and talked about some of those requirements to put, a production and kind of a business plan together that's required for the transfer and for the license. So I think we feel comfortable with that and the path to action. And I think that gives enough time. That way, if there's some questions or concerns with that, there's still the ability to tweak that plan and get it into meeting permit requirements and licensure requirements, and not rush and have to deal with issues later. So I think that's a good amount of time.
Thank you, Jeff. Ted, did you want to speak at all?
I'm good with that.
Okay. There's your answer, Matt. Any other questions for Peter or Jeff?
Just a quick comment, if I could, Jason. I just want to thank Shab very much for taking the time to put a lot of energy and thought into this. And I think this is a really great outcome. So thank you again to Peter and the entire advisory board. And then I'm ready to make a motion in support of their recommendations. I just want to make sure I'm making the right recommendation.
Yep.
Thanks, Erica.
Erica?
I think you just need to give a start date to the 90-day clock.
Okay.
Dawn?
I was just thinking, why don't we prepare a written notice and have it start on that date? You know, if it's by Friday, you know, maybe Jeff send something out on Friday and give it a few days to go to him and start it then. So I don't know, maybe like next Wednesday, a week from today, the 90 days starts.
Jeff, I'll give you enough time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's no problem.
Sure. Okay.
So I guess the motion is to move forward with the recommendations put forth by Shab with a start date of March 16th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor? Melissa?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. That passes 5-0 unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shab. Thanks, Peter, Andy Lowell. Ted, thank you for figuring this out. Oh, sorry. Ted, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody involved for their patience and all that. So thank you.
I hope it works out. Thank you, everyone.
They will.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
And let's get some microphones for Roberto and Jeff. Seems like everybody in that building needs a little mic replacement. Okay, move back here. Town managers report.
Okay, first off, we have second quarter budget reports for fiscal 22. We're starting with the airport, and I believe the airport manager, Tom Raptor, is on to take us through that budget. Tom?
Yes, thank you, Libby. As you'll see in the summary page, our revenues for the end of the second quarter were up about 6.7 million. Expenses were up about 1.5. So our net earnings about 10.2 versus 5 million from the prior year. And then when you do all the transfers and things, the surplus about 9.6 million as opposed to 3.7 before. So the airport's in pretty good financial condition right now. Our certified retained earnings came in at $7.2 million. When we add those together, the projected balance at the end of December was $16.7 million. And I just want to make a few notes that we only transferred $250,000 from our PFC account. That's normally $400,000, but because of the pandemic last year, we only did the $250,000. And some of the significant revenue increases were attributed to airline landing fees. They were up $495,000. Auto rental commissions were up $362,000. And miscellaneous income was up $263,000. That was made up of a grant that we received for our baggage belt, as well as a couple of insurance claims that came in. So they were the main drivers in the revenue side of the house. So all in all, we're in pretty good shape. A lot different from when I looked at some old numbers from about 2012, where we were projecting $1.3 million deficit. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Matt?
Yeah, no, he just answered my questions. So I had two of them, Tom, and you answered three. You answered two out of them. You answered both of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
We've got water department budget next with water company manager Mark Willett.
Good evening. How you guys doing? So quarterly report, I want to thank Brian and the finance team down there to put this report together for us and get us situated to do this. The second quarter was good for us, just very similar to last year's second quarter. Difference in revenue between this year and last year, these two quarters was about $1,400. So we're right there. There is a 2% decrease over that quarter in water sales, and that's kind of continued into this quarter we're in now. I think fewer people are staying through the winter like they did the last couple of years, especially out in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's probably back to normal wintertime quarter 2, quarter 3 pumping rates. So overall, revenues are kind of staying right where they were last year. Very good quarter. Our expenses are staying about the same. We did have a kind of a big increase just based on a payment for Barnstable retirement. Came out in the second quarter. Last year, it came out in the third quarter. That shows the difference there. Other than that, our repair and maintenance, leak items, knocking on wood, are down for the quarter. Not a lot of repairs needed. Everything seems to be going well. Our retained earnings, certified retained earnings, are up to about $6.8 million. The Water Commission has met with and talked about these retained earnings. We're planning to use some of that for additional housing, employee housing, out of retained earnings, and continue to use it for capital projects moving forward. But overall, we're in a really good place. The only thing that should be noted that I would want to bring up next time when we come into the third and fourth quarter, and I think you'll hear the same thing from David after me. We've been been contacted by a lot of our distributors for the material we use. Prices are going to jump for our fittings and our pipe and the different valves that we use. Some of them are 70 to 110% increase in price. So an item that we'd buy for $100 in the second quarter, coming into this third and fourth quarter, is going to be 170 to 175 bucks. So hopefully we'll be able to keep an eye on the expenses moving through the rest of the year and do what we need to do to make everything work. It should be noted that things are definitely changing from last quarter to this quarter. Overall, we're in a very good place, and we're doing well.
Any questions for Mark? I think we're all set. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Mark. David, sewer budget?
Yeah, good evening, everyone, again. And I definitely want to take and state a lot of the same things that Mark said. Is we are seeing incredible increases in materials and lead times. I mean, we're getting anywhere from 6-8 months or even longer to get a single fitting or a pump part or whatever like that. And it's definitely going to have quite an impact on us the next few years. But we're doing about the same. Our revenue was up about 1%. The fee income was also up about 3% as well. And we did see a bit of a decrease in the flows, like Mark said. Wisconsin is an example. We were up in the 30 to 40, 50,000 gallon a day range the last couple of years. And this year we're down to 8,000, 10,000 gallons a day. So we saw a huge decrease in people staying around than we did the last couple of years, which was brought us back to the previous years before COVID. There was an increase in our operating budget, but again, that had to do a lot with materials and purchasing chemicals, and chemicals have gone through the roof for us, as have the timelines to get them. And with all the uncertainty going on nowadays, we'll see what happens there. We luckily were able to get one of our current chemical vendors actually won our award process again. So we should be all set with the one chemical. It's the other chemicals that we're really concerned with. As like Mark said, Barnstable County did come out in the same quarter with us. So there's a increase compared to last year when it was done in the third quarter. And where did my other page go here? Our flows have definitely seen a decrease, even in town. So people have gone back home and kids have gone back to school and everything. So it has gone back to post the old times when before COVID. So our certified retained earnings came in at almost $4.36 million, which was a welcome sight to see come in. All the other numbers are doing as expected or a little better than. Privilege fees. Permitting did take a little bit of a slowdown for a little bit, but we're ramping right up again. I'm in the process of doing permitting now, and I think there's 26 in there tonight. So I'm keeping busy with permitting, and now with the 3 projects started, should be running around like crazy for a little bit. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but we're doing pretty good.
Any comments or thoughts for David? We're all set. Thanks, David.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks very much, David. Bob Petroff, Island Home.
I'm getting there. Okay, thank you. That's what you do with 2 computers at once. All right, so again, thank you to Brian and the rest of the town for putting together the financial highlights for the second quarter of this fiscal year. As you can see here, we had a couple large variances both in revenue and expenses. When you adjust for those variances on the revenue side, it was receipt of the CPE receipts, which is a reimbursement from the state for our Medicare for prior periods. And that large amount came in to offset the initial 77% variance and bring it down into a positive 2% variance. And the revenue ended at a quarter for the quarter at 50% of the estimated budget. So we should be roughly in line for the annualized revenue. Expense wise, likewise, there was a significant increase from the Barnstable retirement payout, which when you factor that, brings things back into line. And that's I think that big picture stuff. And then we go into the details later on, I think. Here you see is just a reflection of the, on track for the revenue and expenses at 50% of the budget for this year so far. And I think that's pretty straightforward as well. And same with the expense side, just kind of the backup for the highlights on the first page. A lot of this, when you talk back, there were a couple things in terms of on the front side with the revenues, which are census related. And the next slide gives some more illustration of that. The first one here is the census data per payer source, and the 1, 2, 3, and 4 numbers to the left side there. The 1 refers to Medicaid revenue. The 2 refers to private revenue. The 3 refers to Medicare revenue, and the 4 refers to pending Medicaid pending, which are folks who are applied for Medicaid in some somewhere along the process of that, and they are categorized as pending. So as you can see, Medicaid has gone up from last year down on the bottom one, and slightly down in private. And then you have the Medicare has slightly gone up, although when you look at the census, it's not so much. And actually, I can share with you our current census is 28, and our Medicaid portion of that is 22. Our Medicare is 2, and our private is 4. In this report for the second quarter are we were at a total census of 31, which was down from 34.5 last year, second quarter, and down from 36 in the first quarter of this year. And likewise, the payer mix percentages and figures are down as well. Private is down or about the same, actually, at 6 or 7. Medicare has gone down to 0.5 from 2 a year ago, and Medicaid has gone down also 3.5. So we're continuing to experience difficulties with the census, and that's I think some of the industries, some of the COVID, and being an island community. So I'm not sure I can give you a definitive answer on why that's happening, other than I think it's just kind of organic market forces that are in place in this small community. The pie chart below, I think, is a good when you talk about payer mix is obviously critical. I don't know which background you've had shared with you in the past, but payer mix is what can make or break nursing homes in terms of their revenue. And if you want to go back, for a second, to go back to that pie chart, what you see there is how disproportionate the disproportional impact of your payer mix. And you see the green out to the left is the private. And, when you only got, 5 or 6 privates and 28 Medicaids, clearly it's a major disproportion, because, 4 or 5 privates will make up for 25 Medicaids. So that's why, the goal and objective, obviously, of nursing homes is to maximize, privates and Medicare where you can, but that's more difficult as people are being taken care of at home. And then again, you get back into the isolated island community dynamic, and it's not like you can go create a better mousetrap to attract more residents from your competitor. That's not our reality. Going forward, in terms of revenue results for the most recent quarter, you see, private income has gone up significantly, and that's again kind of a reflection of the payer mix dynamics. So when you're getting, 2 or 3 times the daily rate for privates, just a half one, or just a single person can be a difference of maybe 10 grand a month in terms of revenue to the facility. Other than that, numbers are basically in line on a total basis from prior years. As you see, prior quarter was 847 versus 834. So, we seem to be steady, with prior periods. Moving forward, again, we've got the revenues for the year to date, and again, those are reflective of the CPA. Outside of the CPE receipts are generally in line. So that will self-adjust, obviously, over time. And moving forward, I'm going over things. I'm just trying to get through quickly and then get to any questions. And again, here you see our expenses. Where's the money go to? Clearly, labor is our primary, and then along with labor is the kind of ancillary dynamic of the medical insurance and payroll and benefits that accompanies that. So that's obviously the key driver on the expense world. And finally, we go to the results for the most recent quarter, and payroll salaries have gone up significantly, and there's some rate change components in there. There's large accrual payout, and we've had some new hires, which have partially offset the reduction in professional services as well. So that's That's what's going on the operating expense side. And then on the final window, pretty much reflects the quarterly numbers and tracks to the prior chart. So that's hopefully helpful. First time through, I want to make sure I don't overburden things and don't under report, but I'm happy to answer any questions and take it from there.
Any questions for Bob? That's very thorough, Bob. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Bob. The lack of customers is something that we've had a couple different consultants warn us about. You know, as we're looking going forward, it's one of, you know, there's been a demographic shift and a change, and, you know, and other people are taking some of the paying patients. So, you know, so that's something that we have, you know, sort of been warned about and somewhat expecting. You know, Libby can confirm that or not, but yeah, it's one of our challenge. I think that's it is and will continue to be one of our challenges.
Yeah, it's throughout the industry, and, you know, home care is picking stuff up, and everybody's trying to get the, you know, the big bang for the buck, folks, and there's fewer of them and more people trying to get them. And again, you can't, you know, I don't know what the saying is, you know, silk purse out of sow's ear or something or other, but, you know, Nantucket's closed community, so you've got to work with what you have and try to do it the best you can to take care of services and be fiscally responsible. It's not easy. So, all right.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. Thank you, folks. Have a nice night.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, we have a review of updated free cash recommendations for the 2022 annual town meeting. Brian and I reviewed these with you, I think, when we were reviewing the budget not very long ago, or maybe it was with the capital projects. And we have since come up with a couple of additional recommendations. And so this chart shows what is being recommended currently from free cash. And this has almost all been reviewed and approved by the Finance Committee. We reviewed this with them yesterday. So our additional items down below here, concession facility repairs, this related to the need to most likely do some repairs to possibly jetties and Children's Beach, maybe in the fall, to get us through a little bit more until we can figure out how we are going to completely, you know, possibly redo either one of those facilities. Private road revolving fund. We have this revolving fund that we do not use very often. And we do have a pending request that hasn't gotten to you yet because we're struggling to get it researched and finished off to give it to you. There's some residents along a private road that want the town to fund some drainage improvements. They understand that it's bettered back to them, but we need to come up with funding up front to actually do the repair work and also to understand what the estimated cost of the repair work is. So this is a possible funding source for that, depending on how much we're talking about. Now, this big item here, housing assistance program for town employees. This met with some discussion by the Finance Committee, with about half of them feeling that it wasn't a fully thought through program, which we readily acknowledge it is not. And the other half saying, we know it's not, however, we're in a desperate situation, so we need to proceed with something. So in a nutshell, so long story short, FinCom said that they would be willing to put forward a technical amendment at town meeting once we feel that our program is more developed. And we are going to be working with two of the Finance Committee members. They've offered to assist us with that development. So we feel happy about that. And basically what's come up is, as you know, we've had discussions recently as to public safety employees leaving, not being able to find housing, that causing a real problem with town operations, as well as other employees, public works and others, to name a couple of departments. And we came across a program that a county in Georgia has established, which offers stipends to public safety employees only in that particular situation, they were finding that their public safety employees were leaving the county and they didn't want them to live outside the county. And in order to attract them back in, they came up with the idea of housing stipends. So we're looking at that as a model. I think we're not going entirely in that direction. Our thought is more along the lines of a grant to hopefully the community foundation. The community foundation would then allocate the funding based on certain criteria, which admittedly is not developed yet, but we do have some ideas about it. And we'll start working with the FinCom folks as soon as possible to get the program more developed. But the bottom line, I think, is that we feel we're in a real concerning situation with town employees and a lot of information that we're getting that is, pointing to a real struggle. And obviously the town is not the only employer, but we are the largest employer on the island, and we have a lot of demands and expectations from the public that need to be met, and we're having a big struggle to meet those. We've issued a housing survey to our employees that's due back on Monday, and we're hoping that information from the housing survey will also help us be more informed about what sorts of criteria we could establish with this program. And we'll need a little time to evaluate the survey results. Brian, did I miss anything? Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered all of not only our thoughts on the program, but also FinCom's observations yesterday at the meeting.
They definitely had legitimate concerns, and we didn't disagree with them, but we did feel like we have got to move forward with something. The other thing is we would not actually provide a grant until we had the program fleshed out and straightened out. And then there was another suggestion that instead of giving $1 million to the community foundation, that we give it in tranches and sort of evaluate the results as we go. So that was a good idea as well. The last item is potential solid waste deficit for the current fiscal year. We don't know the number there. I think, Brian, when we did the solid waste budget last week, was it, or the week before? I can't remember, week before, I guess. The budget was looking okay and not in a red flashing danger zone, but we just don't know how it's going to end up for fiscal 22. So we wanted to reserve something in the event that we encounter a deficit situation there. Is that accurate? Or do you want to add to that?
No, I think that you covered that very well, Libby. I think we just, with 4.7 million unallocated, we have more than enough to cover it, and I don't expect it to be anywhere near that, but we're just not entirely sure that, given the increased usage, how that's going to play out. And we've been following it and talking to George Aronson, the consultant, every week or every couple of weeks, just to get an idea. So that, but this is we need a little bit more time to continue to review it to get a really good handle on where we think it's ultimately going to end up. And I'm hoping, as the town manager noted, that we won't actually need any transfer at town meeting.
So Brian, remind me where we stand with these additional items. Did we work them into, with the exception of housing and solid waste, into motions?
We didn't do anything with the concession facility repairs. I think part of the discussion we had was we have a $6 million authorization for facilities, so we might be able to use that. And I think we're also reappropriating money from Children's Beach into an article to be able to fund some repairs to the facilities prior to this. In private roads, we had a very limited conversation, but chose not to move forward at this point in time. I would just point out the only changes really from the January meeting, where we did add the hybrid support. We added the 500,000 in additional in coastal resilience planning, which is in Article 10. And the unpaid bills, due to some transitions in various departments, increased, but this is really a one-time event that's happened. So other than that, there was not a lot of other changes to the recommendations initially.
So the additional items for consideration, we aren't actually putting forward at this time. We were contemplating them, except for the housing.
Correct.
Okay, so I didn't say that quite right. So I guess that's really where we are. And I don't know if the board has any comments about it, if you want to add anything about the housing. We again need to develop a program more fully to bring it back, and FinCom, I think, is willing to add it in for town meeting, but as a technical amendment. And this may come up at your meeting with them, your joint meeting with FinCom and Planning Board tomorrow afternoon.
Matt?
Yeah, I'd love to see the details of it. I think the housing is important, but I want to make sure that we're doing it, cost effectively and well. A buddy of mine who is in the housing business thinks that we should be, and I've mentioned this before, thinks that it should be, we should be subsidizing the mortgages in some manner rather than a stipend. He thinks there's certain things that we can do, and he's explained it to me. It's kind of a little over my head, but I'll get him in touch with your group when we get to that. He thinks that we could do a lot of good that way. And then the other thing I would say is one of the things that came out of the meetings we've had the last 3 days was picking a couple of the sort of physical things that people could see, not just we're going to do a plan or we're going to do a study, but pick a couple things for the public to see sort of. And the two that kind of bubbled up that wouldn't cost a lot of money and we'd like to do sooner would be the end of Nantucket Road, so that taking a right onto Ames is protected. And the other one that we talked about was out at Sacagawea Pond and fixing what happened out there. And so those are two that we might want to consider, if Vince comes up with the numbers and we don't have it elsewhere, we might want to consider those. I don't think they're millions and millions of dollars. I think they might be short dollars. And I think it would be a great thing to get started on some of this. We have so much to do with resiliency that, we need to get the public support, and we need to pick some sort of low-hanging fruit, pick some that we can show what is going to have to be happened and what, basically it's going to, and I'm sort of running into probably what Libby and I are going to talk about at the end, but basically we're going to be, coastal resiliency impacts all of us. Every single person on the island has to get to the steamship and use the roads, and in certain aspects, it impacts every single person. And so we've got to find a way to, sort of make that message clear. It's getting there. We're doing a good job and it's getting there. And I think one of the ways of doing that is to, fund a couple projects sooner rather than later. So if there's a possibility of using free cash to do it, if it's affordable and we can do it, I would, hope that we would.
Wilson?
Thanks so much. And that's a great idea, Matt. I also excited to see the details on the housing plan. I kind of just wanted to make a comment, I guess, on the concessions. I'm happy to see a proposed amount to go into some improvements there. Given what I think I've seen over the past few years, $250,000 could be really a drop in the bucket in terms of some of the repairs that some of those buildings need. So, I think it would be interesting to see what some short-term and long-term plans would need to be to address the issues at the concession stands. And if there was an opportunity, if more was needed, I would be open to that conversation, in the short term, meaning over the next year. Certainly nothing for this summer. But that was just my comment. Thanks.
Anybody else? Thanks, Libby. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to select board comments. Matt and Libby, did you want to add anything else on the design workshop?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then Matt, do you want to go first? I shouldn't have.
You can go first, and then or you can correct me. I'll mess it up either way.
You go ahead.
No, it was a couple long days and a tough week to do it because we're opening on Friday, hopefully, if I pass inspection tomorrow. But I think it was worth it. I think it was somewhat a team building exercise. And I started out a little bit sort of cynical about it. But as it went along, it made me realize that it was a really good way to get everybody to participate, to write things down and bubble up ideas. And it really did help. And it was interesting. They put us into two different groups for both days. And both groups came up with, a couple things that were unique to the groups, but for the most part, when we prioritized, both groups came up with sort of very similar suggestions. And one of the big ones is, how do we get the capacity to go after grants, and how do we prioritize? How do we get the capacity in the town government to handle this? How do we build that over short, medium, and long term? Both groups kind of identified those issues, and then both came up sort of similar ideas on public relations, on reaching out and how do we get the message out. That became pretty clear. And again, different ideas came out, like what is it that we can do that, in the short term, and I think Vince is already has already achieved or has knocked off 4 or 5, is working on 4 or 5 of the 40. So he's, we're making a good start, but there's a lot, so there's some big ones that are going to have to get started relatively soon too. And so it was, it was well worth doing. I think it was it was consensus building, but consensus building with, what do I say? Just eliciting is sort of outside the box thinking, which again, I didn't think, okay, yeah, right, that's really going to work, but it kind of did. So it was well worth it. And now you can fix what I said, Libby.
No, I wouldn't really fix any of that. I think you really captured it. And we had, as I said earlier, this sort of finale this morning with a smaller group with the consultants. We sort of briefed each other because Matt and I and Christy and Dawn were in one group with others, and then there was a different group. So we heard from the other group what they talked about, and it was really interesting how like one group got to a certain point, and then another group, we weren't communicating with each other, picked it up like sort of naturally from where the other group left off. So that was very good. And I agree, the team building was excellent. There, we were instructed not to say no to things that came up and to let the discussion occur. The consultants are going to put all of this together and bring a presentation to us hopefully within about a month. So you all can see what some of the approaches were. We were trying to come up with, what do we do now, the Coastal Resiliency Plan? And there's obviously a lot of education and outreach. And so both groups talked extensively about that. We talked about picking a project, like Matt said, a visible project so that we can demonstrate that we're making progress. And we talked a lot about funding. And there's a lot of work to be done there because obviously this plan contains projects that are going to be very, very costly. And so we talked about putting together a work group that could focus on funding, maybe getting some citizens in on it and that sort of thing. I think I really would like to thank, I'm not going to be able to remember everybody's name, but we had people from the Finance Committee, the HDC, I think the ZBA, the Planning Board, the Concom, Land Bank, Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, the Conservation Foundation, and then a number of town departments were represented: town admin, natural resources, plus finance, sewer, water, public works, and airport. And really, this was a lot of time, two full days, really. Some people had to go a little bit and come back. Anthony Ferrantella made an appearance, not an appearance, he was there quite a bit. I think he contributed very little, but was fascinated, obviously, by the process because he was quite quiet and transfixed by the whole thing. And anyway, just really thank everybody who attended, and the consultants, I think, did a really good job wrangling all of us. So more to follow on this. This is really, obviously there's been a massive amount of work done already by the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. And this is, hopefully we're going to build on that work, continue it. And there's probably some kind of a role for that group. I know that they're working on figuring that out.
And there'll be something we can share with the public and with you guys in 2 weeks or some fairly soon. that we should be seeing that. And I will say, it was very hard. It was hard for Libby, but it was really hard for Greg to not say no to everything. So watching them struggle and sort of have to keep their yes face on was very interesting, but it worked.
It was very good.
Melissa?
Thank you. That's awesome to hear. I love the yes face. And thanks, Matt. You answered my question. I was just going to ask, is there something that we could read or see, or and I was sad to miss it. It had been on my calendar for months. Do not miss, but we had a family obligation come up, and I was sad to miss it. But thanks for representing, and thanks to Anthony for being there. It sounds like a great first step. And, I do think you're absolutely right, Matt. It's just going to become part of our language and part of our planning. And we're going to be constantly in conversation for, a decade, if not more, about how these projects are going to be prioritized and how we're going to fund them. So I appreciate all the dedication and time spent. And I especially appreciate the yes hats being forced on. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any other comments? I see some hands up, but usually this isn't we don't take public comment or any select board comments, but I'm assuming it's going to be relevant to design workshop. So if we can be quick, Mary Longacre. And Mary's the chair of the Coastal Resiliency Committee.
Thank you very much, Jason. I want to extend my thanks to all of the participants in that workshop. And I recognize, as Libby said, that was a huge commitment for 2 days from both town staff and from the committee chairs, many people volunteering for that. So you have my gratitude. I also wanted to let people know that the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee will be meeting next Tuesday, March 15th from 10 to 12. I spoke to Vince just at the beginning of your meeting, and we're going to go ahead and post an agenda for that. It's simply to extend and continue the conversation that happened at the workshop. Not an official report by any means, but just an opportunity for those who are available to share their takeaways and their thoughts, and for members of the public who are not able to participate because it was a workshop, this is a chance to just join the conversation. So I do want to let people know about that. And again, thank you all so much for the time you put in on the last 2 days.
Thanks, Mary. We go to Bert. Somehow Billy Cassidy got in there. Here we go. There's Bruce.
There I am. Thank you, Chairman Bridges. I attended for a little bit of time, and I wanted to thank all the participants. And I was really impressed by seeing all the different stakeholders that were coming together and sharing ideas and bouncing things off of each other. I think that was really important to get those together. And I took some pictures. So if Libby wants something for her newsletter, some pictures of it, I'd be happy to send it to her if she wants. She knows how to get in touch with me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce. Christy and I were talking today, and I couldn't attend, but Christy, you were so impressed with this type of facilitation. Like, how do we do more of that with really, really big issues? Well, whether it's housing or whatever, the water quality, where it needs all departments and all committees and people from everywhere. And I think Arcadis knows this type of format, but I was wondering, does Julia Novak know it? And, if it really worked and everybody seems to be really energized from it, and how do we apply it the next year or two to other big issues? Just something to think about.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jason, because at our session this morning, we talked about perhaps doing this again, maybe in the fall, after we've hopefully had some successes on the way, or maybe even next winter, maybe a year from now, to check in, to evaluate where we are. Does anything need to be tweaked? That sort of thing. But as you said, this could even be for other totally unrelated plans or projects.
Right, and it might not have to be 2 days. It could be half a day or a day, depending on the level of the subject matter. Matt?
One of the key parts of this is people felt comfortable to say, this is where we have a hole. This is what we're missing. We can't do that because of this. And the goal is like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? You know, and so that part, you know, and I hadn't really thought of that till now, just to this conversation. But I think that part of it was interesting, was too often people seem to get dug in on, well, we can't do that. That's not legal, or that's not our job, or that's whatever. But these big issues, you know, we need need people to work together and, and find a way to fill the holes and get them done. And so I think that's one of the things that I hadn't really thought about till right now, but it was really evident that, you know, people could say, we don't have the staff, or we don't have that right now. How do we fill that? How do we build this over time to take care of these things without feeling judged or feeling like it was, they're not doing their job, or, it was really good that way.
Thank you, Matt. Any other thoughts on the design workshop? Coastal resiliency? Yep. Any other comments? Okay. Before Melissa makes a motion to adjourn, next week we have our first meeting in person with the hybrid model, and we have a pretty big day. We have any comments that we're going to put on any other article or any other for the annual town meeting warrant will be, I believe, Libby, it's our last day, the 16th, to put comments in. So all members be thinking about if you want to put comments in on anything with short-term rentals or really anything before next Wednesday. And we have public hearings, and then an update on outdoor dining. No major decisions, but I think maybe some direction, and make sure Amy wants to know if she needs to keep going one direction or the other. So that'll be a good discussion. And then some other minor things. Anything else I missed for next week? There's some pending things. I didn't want to talk about those if they've not going to be one.
Steamship?
Yep. Steamship. Yep.
I think you pretty much.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other motions anybody wants to make?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye. Got to keep you on your toes, Jason.
Christy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jason, aye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.